Hey everyone, thanks so much for checking out Take Notes with Dan Razga. These conversations are intended to inspire, encourage, and motivate you into the potential that you have. So pull up a chair, put your headphones in, and let's take some notes and grow together. Well, hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this conversation. I'm here with Andrew Ferren, who is somebody I grew up with. We went to the same high school, and he's one of the new owners of an awesome bar in East Village. It's called 85 Bar. Andrew, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Well, let's talk about 85 Bar, man, because just from like one dude to another, have you ever been in a setting where like guys are hanging out and they're like, dude, how sweet would it be to like start a bar? You know, like that would be sweet. Like you're watching games together or whatever. I've had that happen, at least, I guess, with friends being like, dude, it'd be sick to start a bar. Well, like you and a couple of guys like actually did that, and you have an actual bar. It's not just an idea. Walk us through like how are things going there?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the first thing is that it's crazy because I don't drink. So I definitely like hanging out and watching sports. But it was kind of a weird certain scenario that it happened because, yeah, I mean, like I don't drink. So if you would have asked me a year ago if I would have owned a bar, I would have literally probably called you crazy. But yeah, I mean, basically two friends of mine, they're both fairly integral parts of Woolies, work in the music industry, which is where I kind of came from. I did sound at Woolies for a long time and other places. And, the concert industry kind of came to a halt entirely. And Sam Summers, who owns Woolies and owns a lot of businesses in that area, the landlord of that building, they know and respect. And they the reason 85 Bar exists actually is that the person that rented the space from that landlord, Isaac, one of my partners, caught her throwing away trash in the Woolies dumpster. So that's kind of the only reason that 85 Bar exists, basically. It led us to talk to the landlord, and basically she said, yeah, that's our tenant in this space on Locust. Sorry, we'll figure out a way to, get your trash bill covered. But it kind of led to this conversation of, hey, there's this space available down the street. We should check it out. And I was kind of brought in a little later. I'm actually, not only do I not drink, but I'm not actually a Bears fan, which is another.
Neither am I.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's public knowledge. Yeah, so I was kind of brought in a little later. I just, I know the guys well, and I think some advice along the way led them to bringing another person in for a few reasons, and I'm super stoked that I was the person that they thought of. And, I think I bring some unique perspectives to the business and being a wedding photographer and stuff. Built my own website. So I built the 85 website and, kind of things like that are things that are helpful to have. But yeah, I mean, the other two guys are super Bears fans and they've kind of had this idea, like you said, I think they've sat around at concerts that they've been working and talked about how cool it would be. I know like they watch the Bears games at Woolies sometimes. So I think the conversation was how cool would it be if we had a Bears bar? And, so it kind of came to be that way. Yeah, it was kind of interesting. We just checked out the space and it was perfect. We wanted to have something small. The East Village is great. The Isaac and Burke have worked at Woolies and in the East Village for so long, and I've spent a lot of time there. And there's Up Down, it's kind of in that same umbrella, and Ernie's, which is in that same umbrella of people. So we have a lot of friends in the East Village, and Isaac lives in the East Village. He's on the East Village board. So there was kind of some roots that involved us in that area. And in the beginning, when we talked about it, we had talked about looking at other places, but ultimately we just kind of fell in love with the idea of being in that area and being in the East Village. And, there's a lot of new apartments and people living there and businesses and things like that. So it's a great place to set up for us, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's genius on like multiple levels. Like it's genius because it is a new bar in East Village. It's not like Ernie's. It's not, and I love Ernie's. It's not like, some of the other places. It's not like Beechwood or other places that are in East Village. It's a very different bar that fits really well. That like, I mean, I live right above 85 Bar, I live right above Spot W. So I live like right here. And it's perfect for me and Savannah because we like walk down there and watch games sometimes, but it's a great place to watch a game, truly. And I'm glad that you landed here, like in East Village for sure. Cause it's a cool new thing to it. It was an exciting thing to look forward to. You guys launched like during the football season, which was, I don't know if it was strategic, but it was great. I mean, it's a Bears bar. It worked out great.
Yeah,
So
we kind of were, we had hoped to open at the beginning of the season, which kind of became impossible. But ultimately, like you said, a lot of my friends live in the East Village and stuff too, and as someone who's not a Bears fan but is a huge sports fan, that was kind of one of the things that it's a Bears themed bar, but we wanted to make it so that it's not like, if Packers fans want to come watch Packers games, like we wanted it to just be a good sports bar with like just a good environment and kind of a good vibe, and not just like somewhere where you go and like crush bush lights and yell at the top of a table. Like we wanted to have like a nice place, nice bathrooms, just like a good location that you comfortable hanging out in all day, and watching games that, maybe a couple games, who knows, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I have a couple questions kind of about the space, because I don't know if people listening have been, and hopefully they have, because it's a really cool space. You guys did it right. It's one of the it's one of the nicest sports bars I've ever been in.
Yeah.
Just the aesthetic is great. The decorating, I guess maybe not the most professional word to use, but it looks really cool. Like it's really cool memorabilia. So walk us through that. How did you guys plan? I mean, because it looked like there was a lot of detail that went into, even like the bathroom floors have like pennies on the bottom of them. They look really cool. Like, how did that all happen?
It's like actually nuts to think about. We sat in there like a month after we opened, once we like finally could breathe and just like finally got to like absorb it. And it's crazy. That building's 100 years old. It's and you wouldn't know it if you were like blindfolded and brought in. Like we got to kind of redo everything, and the things that were that exist from or like representative of its age are cool and like have held up for sure. Yeah, dude, it's like when we first started doing it, the room was empty. The bathrooms, there was like a little like almost like a glorified like porta potty in there. It was just like a little like square in the middle of the room with no ceiling, with one toilet in it. There was no real way to get down to the basement that was safe. So I mean, we started with essentially an empty room, and we kind of came up with some ideas. I mean, just like any other business, we walked around in there with like tape on the floor and just tried to picture what it would look like with all this stuff. And I would have never imagined. But yeah, we had some struggles along the way with kind of like the idea, but we went from having bigger bathrooms to the realization that the space is small, and we shrunk the bathrooms, which gave us space to put bumper pool, which is so fun. And I had never played it. But yeah, honestly, things kind of just like worked out. Like we had like a plan going in. We were fortunate to have a guy helping us build it that's super experienced with building bars, and we kind of gave him freedom with a lot of things. And then a lot of the things that I think I liked the most about the place ended up being like accidents. The wood that's up at the top of the bathrooms was like not at all part of the plan, but we had to put some equipment up there, so we bought more of the wood that was on the bar to put up there. And I can't even imagine it without it. Yeah, so I mean, we just spent a lot of time trying to plan. Isaac, one of the partners, he's bartended a lot. He's bar managed, general managed. So for him, it was trying to figure out the best way to be able to serve customers, use the space we could in the best way we could, and ultimately making it convenient for bartenders. And we've had a lot of people that are bartenders in the area that have said that like it looks like the best scenario for bartending. There's space, plenty of room for the bartender to move around. Bathrooms was a big conversation. As someone who's played music in a lot of venues across America, there's nothing worse than going to a venue and having like the bathroom not be an option. Vaudeville Muse, rest in peace. Love the place. I've played there a million times. You don't go to the bathroom there. You go to Joppa Joe's. And so, for someone who's going to hang out at the bar all day, we wanted to make sure like that was huge. We spent more on the chairs than we planned on, but we wanted them to be comfortable so people could hang out. And
they're really nice. Those chairs are so comfortable, dude.
They're great.
They're sweet.
I do sit there all day. And Burke, our partner, he's like the pinnacle of Bears fans, and he kind of spent a lot of time online looking for memorabilia and stuff, which was super cool. And like we got Van Holmgren, a local artist, painted like a mural above the front window of some players. It's super cool. So, these things just kind of popped up along the way. Isaac's grandpa collects pennies. So that was kind of this idea of doing penny floors. And there was actually a moment in time where we were going to get rid of them. We weren't going to do them. I was sitting in the bar one day. We had found out we had to move a wall entirely, and it kind of crushed me. It was actually like the worst ever. And Isaac came in, and I told him I didn't think we could do the floors, and we kind of agreed. And Bert came in and kind of set us straight a little bit on that and talked us down off the ledge, and we went with it. And it was, yeah, I mean, that was like a huge project. But again, you walk in there, and that's the kind of thing that you remember and you talk about. And granted, you don't want like the bathroom to be the coolest experience, but we want it to be a cool experience all the way through.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we did. But yeah, I mean, it just turned out great. It's just unreal that, I mean, me and Isaac painted those bathrooms till 2 a.m. I mean, everything that we put a hand into was like trying to race the clock, and because ultimately, we wanted to open this bar, but the NFL season is kind of like, I mean, it's a Bears bar, so like to open on the off season is just like would be strange, I think. So yeah, I mean, we knew we would be spending 20-hour days there, but it's a lot different to do it. And now it seems like a distant memory, but we put in a lot of time to make it look the way it does, feel the way it does, and kind of give a vibe that it does. And yeah, again, as someone who doesn't spend a lot of time at bars, I love being there. And I wouldn't normally not, like to be at a bar, but I mean, it's just a great place, honestly, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The memorabilia, like I think the kind of the genius in having it 85 themed is that like, it feels more like a historic Bears bar. Cause like I'm a Packers fan, of course. I'm like not a big Bears fan, but it doesn't feel like a rah-rah Bears bar to me. Although if I was a Bears fan, I would freaking love it. I would totally go, but it doesn't like eliminate the clients who like are customers, I guess. Who would maybe, not be like, I think that there was a good, like you have a great theme that isn't like alienating, I guess. And the memorabilia make it where like, if you're a football fan, like you have to love like cool pictures, of Dick Butkus hanging on the wall and Walter Payton and things like that.
Everybody can appreciate that. And that was like, with our business plan, we always use the term like nostalgic sports bar. We didn't want it to be like this crazy, like bright orange, like Margaritaville looking place.
Right.
And we wanted it to be that way. And yeah, I mean, the other day I was sitting at the bar and some people were in there drinking and like we're watching sports and having a good time. And the girl goes, "Ugh, I didn't realize it's a Bears bar yet." Like they were like making jokes about it, but they hung out and like, it's like kind of funny actually, because it's like a bait and switch. It's like this cool sports bar, and then you realize it's a Bears bar, and depending on what team you like, you're like, oh no. But again, it's like we just wanted it to be like nostalgic and as Burke would refer to it, like a Bears museum essentially, but not to the point where like someone else comes in and is like, "Get me out of this place." Bears fans are screaming.
Right. Yeah. So how much do you think about like, I feel like the main barrier when people think about starting, I guess, let's just say a business, but let's just, in your guys' case, like a bar, I would imagine the first thing I think of is like, oh my gosh, like how much money is this going to cost? In your opinion, how much of it like is like, okay, yeah, there's some money as that's an investment, but you're making it sound like there's a craft that you have to create in your business that like brings people in. You have to have you mentioned the term experience. Like share a little bit about the things that are like maybe not the obvious, which is the money. A place like East Village in here, like it's a poppin' place. I'm sure like the real estate, it's maybe an expensive place to be. But like, what are other things that were factors that maybe other people wouldn't consider that like are maybe even equally as important as the money?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, aside from money, I mean, like the concept of opening a bar, I think on paper is pretty simple. You serve drinks and people drink them. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. People are pretty big creatures of habit, so they develop habits of places they like to go. And so, we wanted to make sure, on paper, at least, like, with the decor and with the theme and everything, we wanted it to be somewhere that you would want to go, bathrooms, things like that. But yeah, I mean, we hired like a publicist to help us out with some stuff. They developed like our target demographic for us, basically. So they kind of wrote it out for us that said, this is Dan. He's, like works at Principal. And they had like these kind of like mock people and ideas and things like that to help us kind of align with that, which I think was kind of important. We kind of brainstormed and worked with them on a few ways to kind of grow a little bit of a social media following beforehand. Obviously it helps knowing people, and we know a lot of us are in the business of knowing people, so that's helpful too. But We also wanted to make sure that we had kind of a situation where if you wanted to come crush 20 Bush Lights, you could, but also if you wanted to have like an old fashioned or something, that it wouldn't just be like, a whatever experience. Like one of the guys I play hockey with comes there to watch games, and like every time just talks about how good the old fashioned is, which again, I wouldn't know, but like, attention to detail on that. We were fortunate that we had a guy that we know kind of fall into our lap and help us develop our cocktail menu as well. And it's been a huge success, honestly. Outside of selling, Bush Light, which is a pretty popular item in the area here. The cocktails have done really well. And then, mini beers were kind of this thing that we, Isaac specifically, but kind of brought into the fold as something that, we think it'd be kind of cool to develop this like kind of thing, the Bears score, you drink a mini beer and like it becomes kind of this thing. But we really didn't realize that it would become as big of a staple. We changed our social media to say home of the mini beer because, we just can't seem to not sell mini beers. And like the hot dogs, we knew we wanted to keep people there to eat as well. There's like a Jimmy John's down the street, but like ultimately, short of like leaving at halftime or ordering food in, you would be kind of either hungry or without. So, little things like that we kind of tried to do. Opening a bar is just like an interesting concept, but we wanted to make sure it was, done at a level that was above just thinking about serving drinks, and like, and me with like an IT background, we did like card readers for the doors so bartenders can get up and down the stairs and get into things easily, which are just like all these little things from like an employment standpoint and from a customer standpoint that we tried to kind of put into the fold. And I think it's paid off for sure. But yeah, I don't know. The business side of it was interesting too. Opening your first like legitimate business. I'm a wedding photographer, but you have money come in and a few costs go out, equipment and things like that. But owning a business where you're, paying people and doing things like that, I think was a little bit bigger of an undertaking than we would have expected. Getting a food license, convincing the East Village board to let a bar go in. We mailed letters out, you included, you received one. There were kind of things that we didn't really know about, kind of from like a logistical hurdle just to even get the opportunity to say, hey, we're opening a bar. And then, the factor of it being 100-year-old building, we had a lot of costs in that maybe we wouldn't have gotten elsewhere. But again, we kind of fell in love with the space. So we did a whole new heating and cooling system in there, which was at our expense. But again, you talk about, kind of looking at the big picture and if you want to go watch a Bears game at a bar and you're sweaty and hot and miserable, you're not going to want to come, it's like a negative connotation that you're going to remember and not want to come back. So again, just like little details like that and being willing to kind of say, hey, this is going to cost us, but we want to make a good experience. And truly we did. And I think we did it. So.
Yeah. You mentioned your wedding photographer, you have an IT background. Like for people who don't know, you shot Savannah and I's wedding and we like love all the footage that you took. What about, so for sure, like there's a pitch, like if you need a wedding photographer, videographer, like Andrew is truly who you want. And you can see that even displayed at the 85 bar on a smaller level, I guess, just like you can tell like your guys' Instagram posts are like super clean. The aesthetic of your page is very, very good. Like I'm assuming that you're doing those things just because I know you, but like, what's your role like from that end? I guess like, what's your, like, there's different owners. What's your kind of thing that you kind of hone in on? Is it marketing? Is it things like that?
Yeah. So when we first started talking about this project, I kind of had to figure that out a little bit because, as the last person brought in, I feel like your instinct is to say, well, what am I doing that hasn't already been decided? Luckily I got in pretty early on that. So, from a getting the business open standpoint, there was quite a pretty even workload of things, but I was pretty much the point of contact on site for everything that went in and out of the door. Isaac and I kind of spent a lot of time there because he lives across the street. So, farming out, figuring out what equipment we were going to put in. I worked with the contractors to basically tell them what we wanted and kind of bring that vision to construction terms. Now Isaac is the manager of the space. So he kind of handles making sure staffing, inventory, things like that. None of the owners are bartending or working there, which I think is a perk and a benefit for
Mhm.
us because we can kind of focus on other things. So he's kind of handling the day to day of that, and I am dealing with basically everything on the back end. So I go in once a week, shoot content for social media, fix anything that's been broken throughout the week because I'm a handy little guy. But I'm handling all of the payroll, all of our accounting on the back end, kind of all of the nerdy things basically that make a business
Mhm.
actually function. Um, and yeah, about that.
Okay.
Which doesn't sound significant, maybe, but it's a grind for sure.
No, I'm sure it is, man. Especially, I mean, yeah, especially trying to start a business in the middle of a pandemic, like a marketing, a digital marketing, especially, like everyone's trying to like up that. I feel like because they're like, well, we have to.
Yeah,
And so for you guys sticking out, is a big deal, I guess. For all the things that you're doing, and maybe I want to give you a second to kind of say like, it sounds like you have like 3 jobs. So maybe tell us what those jobs are.
yeah.
I know you do a full-time something with IT. I don't even know what it is. And then you do wedding photography and then 85. So what are those jobs? And then the second question to that is like, how do you make sure that you're like doing all of those at a high level and you're not like, did you have to think about that with 85 being like, oh man, like this could change some things with wedding photography or whatever. So yeah,
And
shed light on that.
yeah, and it has for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've just always been kind of like a busy person. I don't know, it's just in my personality to kind of just like always take on more things and like, not to say that I'm like old, but as I'm getting older, it's definitely become more interesting and more difficult probably. But yeah, so my day job is in programming. I work in technology. I write code for conference room systems. It basically, if you work at a big company and you have a meeting room that has like a touch panel that controls whatever in the room, I program that. So again, though, never would have thought that would be what I did. It just kind of happened that way. And then, wedding photography came predated to that, which is a whole different story on how that came to fruition. But yeah, so I mean, I've been doing those two things pretty much as my main sources of income and living for the last 5 or 6 years. I've been doing both of those things, and you kind of get a swing of things. Heidi, my girlfriend, she's a show choir director, so I'm kind of like the show choir guy in the winter, and then I do weddings in the summer. So luckily, both of those things keep me pretty much busy through the calendar year. So I don't really have time to have downtime, which is good. So yeah, I mean, my day job's cool. I work from home doing that for the most part. And because of COVID, people aren't having as many meetings in conference rooms and stuff. So my job has shifted a little bit into some different angles. And so, and with the COVID shutting down the concert industry, the other guys kind of had a little bit of flexible schedules as well, which kind of led us to being able to even do 85 bar. And kind of gave us that space. Otherwise, I think in a normal world, I wouldn't have probably had the mental capacity to do it. And so, that leads you to what happens when the world continues back up to my workload and stuff. And, shooting 20 weddings a year and running a bar and having a day job. So I suspect and potentially another business option in the works right now too. So yeah, I don't really know. Where that will land, and playing hockey 4 days a week. But yeah, I've just always been busy, and it's kind of in my nature to want to be busy. But at a certain point, I'm going to have to kind of try to figure that out for sure. I just kind of keep stacking things on and making it work, and surprisingly, I do have quite a bit of free time. It's just kind of time management and really trying to make sure that you do stuff when you say you're going to, and trying to meet deadlines. And this year was a little bit of struggle with that, with COVID and with opening a bar in the midst of that, while also all of that being during my wedding season. It was kind of, like I said, putting in a lot of long days, and now things have kind of settled down a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. Does that answer that?
No, yeah, it does. And like kind of the spiel, I guess, for take notes is like wanting to have conversations with the types of people that like have proven success that other people should be like taking notes from. and we're talking a lot about like the things in, I wish I would have asked this with actually Ben Neiman last time I had the conversation with him. Is like we talk a lot about the things that you do that like, man, we should take notes from. You should for sure emulate. Like you should do this. I did this. What are the things that like, if you would be open to sharing, like maybe not specifically, but on whatever like level you feel comfortable, like things that you did that like in your career, maybe it was through 85 bar, maybe it was taking on too many things at once. Like what are things in your like kind of entrepreneurial like journey that you would like tell people like, hey, like learn from my mistake. I did this too early. I did this, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those things?
It's tough because I don't want to use the word like lucky, but I've definitely like been fortunate in some circumstances that have aligned for me. I wasn't really like given anything. My mom's disabled and lives off of that. I mean, I didn't go to college, so on paper, I think things could have ended up a lot differently for me. So it's just been kind of a weird last 10 years. I mean, I was working at Woolies and running sound there, which I, of course, would not have thought that 10 years later, those relationships would have led me to opening a bar with those same people. It's like kind of crazy to look back on that. And, I went from doing the Woolies thing to traveling, doing sound. And again, that was just like I happened to run sound on a day where a owner of some big touring company was there and, saw me running around hustling and working and offered me a job. And I did that for a while. And I thought I would love that. That was kind of like my dream, was to travel and do sound. And I really decided that I didn't like spending my life on an airplane.
Yeah.
At 20, I think I was 20. I just really kind of had this realization that I didn't want to do it. And tried to figure out kind of another option. And again, like I didn't go to college and I didn't have this like defined career path laid out for me. I wish my dog would stop barking. But
That's okay.
Yeah. But so it was kind of like this thing where it was kind of like, okay, well, I don't like what I'm doing. And, where do we kind of go from here? And luckily in the midst of that, I kind of started doing the photography thing. And I think photography has kind of an interesting concept to it because it's one of those businesses that anybody can do on paper. Anybody can go buy a camera and start photographing people and things. But ultimately, while I feel like I take good pictures, right? I mean, it's ultimately how you run your business, how you grow your business publicly, which it applies to any kind of self-driven industry. As you can relate, you kind of have to figure out, I can do this thing and I've figured out that I can do it, but how do I make people aware that I do it in such a way that makes them want to have me do that for them? And I'm in kind of a different boat than some photographers in that I don't really post a lot. I mean, I do, I post weddings as they happen. But ultimately I'm not a very like, I don't want to say like emotional, but like my Facebook posts are pretty literal, or like Instagram posts are pretty literal. It's like, well, here's this wedding and here's this couple and they're awesome and Dan's the man. And
they're
then
married now. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think that there's like, that's just kind of the approach I've decided to take and it's worked. But, any of these businesses that you kind of drive yourself and do yourself, which I think we live in a time where it's more accessible than ever for people to decide, hey, like, I don't want to work for Wells Fargo forever. And I want to do this thing. There's so many different avenues that people can make businesses for themselves and be successful. But I think the big thing is just like understanding that ultimately it is a business. And so you have to find ways to make sure you're profitable and make sure that you're targeting the right people that you want to target and that you're doing things to ultimately, be happy and enjoy things, but pay your bills and live. And I think a lot of that kind of drove me through the whole wedding thing. And, I was lucky to be surrounded with a lot of successful people that could kind of give me a little bit of advice along the way and figuring that out. But really wedding photography kind of taught me a lot about myself and how to relate to people and kind of put myself in their shoes. And the whole time I've done it, I've kind of tried to be the wedding photographer that I would want to hire for myself. While also having the self-awareness that maybe, you or the people, aren't your target market either. Especially in businesses where you decide your pricing for yourself and kind of, you have to align that with your costs and things and understand that there's just different, places for for different price points and ideas. And, same with 85 bar, kind of figuring out how you want to price your drinks and how you want to do things like that. I mean, there's cost association with doing things a certain way, and there are people that appreciate that and align with that. Yeah. As far as mistakes go, I mean, we made 100 of them opening the bar, but again, I don't want to say luck, but like things just kind of worked out. And I think that ultimately a lot of that was just like not letting bad things discourage me or Isaac or Burke or and even before 85 bar, I mean, I've had scenarios that aren't great and stuff in the business side of things and in life and things like that. And, I know it's easier said than done to say, like, well, don't worry about the negative things and, try to look forward past those. I mean, it's a pretty easy thing to say. But when at 85, when we were under construction and our inspector said we had to move an entire wall that had plumbing and electrical and things like that in it. I mean, it's like, well, this is terrible. And, you wake up the next day and you have to kind of figure out a way to deal with that and continue and find a way to put that behind and look ahead. And I think I've always had a good ability to do that, which I'm fortunate that I don't get too caught up in my own head with those things. Just kind of, I don't know, being optimistic. I'm pretty sarcastic, but ultimately at the root of myself, I'm pretty optimistic. I look for the good in things and try to stick with that. But yeah.
No, I appreciate like it's you're in two like industries that like are pretty like populated. Like there's the bar like industry. You're in like wedding photography. I'm in a similar spot. Like I'm in real estate. There's like a lot of real estate agents. So, and I think a lot of people kind of like listening at least are maybe like, if they're on the edge of like starting something or if they're on the edge of going somewhere, sometimes the easiest thing to shoot them down is like, man, it's too overpopulated. Like, how am I going to stick out? And it kind of sounds like what you've said is like, I mean, basically you made it sound like there was no like magic pill. You basically just kept working hard. You kept doing your things. You accepted the fact like there's going to be 20-hour days, which I think, is really can separate some of those people who really just have a real dream versus somebody who just has like an idea. The people who will understand that it's going to take some work to get there, I think is what separates people. And you've just, yeah, man, it's cool to see where you've like come. And it was really cool to see that 85 bar was coming, to see your name on it. For sure, like made me proud. I'm sure it's making people, and also proud to know that like, oh yeah, we like that. We know him. That's cool. It's cool to walk in and say like, oh yeah, I know him.
For sure.
It's cool. So I guess kind of last question would be like the future of 85. Yeah. Like where do you guys have like, yearly, like, hey, after year one, we want like this like benchmark, we want, whether it's a certain amount of money or is it like, we want a certain amount of people through, or like, what's the future to make sure that it's on a trajectory that, from hearing you, it sounds like it's going like really, really well. What are you guys doing, I guess, to maintain that and continue to grow it?
Yeah, for sure.
Because a lot of businesses, I would think, even that started in COVID, like, hardly got off the ground for one, or they, I think like, I'm curious what the stats are on businesses that start really, really well, but die really, really quickly. And so, and I don't mean that, I'm just curious, how are you guys making sure like, hey, we're going to keep this thing rolling?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, again, we're fortunate that the other guys have a little bit of experience in the industry and we have the self-awareness to know that, I mean, like I think the average bar's lifespan is like 5 to 7 years or something. And so, we have to be conscious of all of those things. And I think we did a good job of trying to place ourselves in a successful position to do well. There's not really like a great sports bar in the East Village. A lot of the places that you do go to watch sports, maybe they don't have the sound on, or there's one TV above. You're like at a Buffalo Wild Wings or something. It's like a different atmosphere, and we want it to kind of be this like neighborhood, like come hang out and watch sports and eat hot dogs, and you might run into the same people every time you're there. So I think we've aligned ourselves in such a way that I think I don't want to say like timeless for sure, but like the idea of American sports culture is never going to stop, and people love sports, and there's a lot of them to watch. I think that the good thing for me as someone who's a big hockey fan and less a Bears fan, but again, at the end of the day, just it's a good sports bar. But I think that we've done well with that, and we've kind of built a comfortable environment for lots of fans. And the NHL season starts on Wednesday, and we've had a ton of people asking about, like, are you guys gonna have the Blackhawks games on? So I think that the nice part for us is that sports are year round. People are gonna watch them, and I think that as we continue to build kind of this like word of mouth and social media presence, I think that people, especially that live in the area, but in general, are going to want to come hang out and watch sports there. Yeah, as far as we have some goals. We have obviously from a business standpoint, you have to be financially driven to make sure you stay in business. But ultimately, we kind of had some projections. When we first sat down, and COVID is of course a factor. We're taking precautions and have some spacing and some tables locked down.
Yeah.
We've had great success with kind of making sure that everything's been safe and the best we can at a bar. I mean, the fact of the matter is that it is a bar, and at the end of the day, we understand that and respect that, and we have to be conscious of that. But down the road, I mean, really, with what we've seen now, I think that again, once people are comfortable to kind of come out in mass, and the vaccines made its way around and things like that, we're optimistic. I think that this year has been better than we could have ever thought. Like the mini beer thing, we've sold over 1,000 mini beers in our time being open, and it's just like cool to kind of see the ideas that we thought would be kind of this like cool thing that aligns with our bar has worked, and I think that we'll keep bringing people in and stuff. But yeah, I mean, ultimately we're planning. We have a 5-year lease now with the option to extend it to 10, and there's no world that we aren't doing that. I think the only thing that we wish for is actually a bigger space, which the problem is that with where we wanted to be, it's kind of the East Village that's kind of what you get. It's 50 person space. Yep. So I think this is going to be navigating what the world is like when people are packed into each other again, and kind of figuring out how we can utilize that space efficiently and make a good experience for people. But yeah, I mean, as things look ahead, I think we're looking good. Just making sure everything's cool, and yeah, I mean, everything's should be good, really, honestly.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you talking, and for sure, for those listening, if you've never been to 85 Bar, you should for sure go. It's in East Village off of Locust. It's a great place. You get free popcorn, which is amazing. They give you multiple. I've gotten like 3 rounds of it before. They don't stop, which is awesome. But truly, it's a cool place. They have weekly different hot dogs that are interesting and really, really good actually. And it's just a really sweet environment. So if you're looking for a place to watch a game or hang out with some people, that's the place to go. If you're looking for someone to shoot your wedding, for sure, Andrew's for sure your guy that you'd want to be handling that. I mean, so truly, it would be easy, honestly, Andrew, if I wanted you on for 85, but let's just say Savannah and I didn't really love the pictures. It would be easy to be kind of yeah, I mean, and also is, but truly, I'm not saying that. I'm genuinely saying you do a really, really good job, and we were I mean, in tears with the response that we got from the video and everything like that. So for sure, if you guys are listening and you need that, or if you know someone who needs that, I'll definitely include Andrew's information if you're watching this on YouTube in the description. And dude, we just hope the best for you guys in 85, and I'll probably be in this week, to be honest with you. So thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for checking out Take Notes with Dan Rosca. If you found the conversation helpful, I'd love if you subscribed to my YouTube channel and shared it with your social media friends. I'd also love the chance to serve you or someone you know with any real estate needs. Please send me an email or give me a call to my contact information below on the screen. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.